Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
What if your body already knows how to stay healthy? Interesting question. Because if it knows how to stay healthy, it also knows how to stay unhealthy or go in either direction. Brett O'Loughlin here. We're on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Let me load up my slides here for today. We are on a variety of different YouTube, E360 TV, Apple TV, innumerable social media platforms, about 15 of them. We go to over 60 countries in the world, over 15,000, I think now, programs that have already been recorded, live shows. Anyway, a lot of things here going on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And my show today, I'm continuing on the aging process, longevity, because that is my book coming out called Aging Sucks on July 4th, and that's not that far away. So let's go ahead and get started here. Decoding the biology of aging. That's essentially what I'm doing. I'm looking at the cellular level of the body, what's happening at that level that can create a problem. So if you know what the problem is and you know the cause of that problem, then maybe you have the ability to interject and either enhance the condition to be better or stop something that's making you worse. And so in my particular case of aging, I'm looking at the accumulation of damage versus the ability to repair that damage. So on a big scale of things, so long as you can keep your repair capacity, your capability exceeding the accumulated damage that happens every second of every day to every cell in your body, you're doing well. Okay. From an analytical perspective, my first degree is in chemistry. I have 4 other academic degrees, 7 professional certifications. My primary areas are in quality engineering, reliability engineering, logistics engineering. My mantra, my focus in life is treat the cause, not the symptoms. And if you can find out what the cause is, you stand a better chance of actually making something better. But if you don't, you treat the symptoms, the situation can actually get worse and you never know about it until it's too late. As a strategist, Navy retired captain, aviator, I flew for 16 years, 31 years total in the military. Been in a lot of different places, combat veteran from Vietnam and Bosnia, been to 64 countries. But I'm looking at aging from a systems perspective, from an engineering perspective, which is not typically looked at. As a communicator, I've published 8 or 9 different books, published 50 books for other authors, distinguished Toastmaster. And here, literally in a week or so, I'll be married 58 years. We have a couple of kids, 3 grandkids, and 1 great-grandson. Okay. Awareness and education, that's my primary focus here on the Talking Heads show on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. My scientific research, I may mention a compound, I may mention a specific thing, but again, it's all in the area of awareness and education. It's not meant to be a qualified medical diagnosis or adjustment or recommendation for some other health protocol. See your doctor, see your pharmacist, and get professional information. Okay, mentioned earlier, aging is the ability of that daily tug of war between damage and repair. So on the big on the big balance scale, if you accumulate damage faster than you can repair it, then what happens is now you enter a zone where your body is going to start accelerating the aging process, and the risk of age-related diseases is actually going to increase. So you want to focus on those areas where the repair capability is the primary focus of your body. So in that tug of war, you want to make sure that your efforts, the body knows what it needs to do. You just got to provide it with the right input. And that's probably what most of the time, we don't know what we're doing. So aging, you are not a passive observer in this. That tug of war is something you actually control by the things you do every single day. And we'll get into that in a lot of detail. These are the things you do every day. Your diet, your food, your nutrition, the amount of exercise you do or don't do, the amount of stress you manage or don't manage, the quality of your sleep, the environment you live in. Those are all things that act on, if you are, let's say, on the left side of each of these things, you're probably going to accumulate damage and have a shorter life, not as enjoyable. But if you can keep it in the green zone, not overdo it, because overdoing it and underdoing it are a problem. So you want to be in that, what I call the Goldilocks zone, that green area on the dials. So if I'm looking at it from the old, what do you call that, bell-shaped curve, yeah, I can either underdo something, not eating well. I can overdo something, really overdoing my exercise or stress. So I got to be in a certain good range. Goldilocks, the bed was too hard, too soft, and then finally she found the one that's just right. So you want to be in that just right zone, because that's where that Goldilocks zone is at, and that's where you can optimize the cellular response to fight off damage that happens every single day. Okay, I think that's the last one on that one. I believe it is. So let me move to my next slideshow. Okay. Last week I talked about 8 of the 12 hallmarks of aging, and we went into a lot of detail with each one of them. So if you want to know details about what's happening there, that is a really good show to pick up and learn more about. So today I want to cover the last 4. I'll also kind of highlight some of the earlier 8 ones, but the ones I really didn't talk to about in detail was mitochondrial function. I want to optimize it. Inflammation and senescence. These are the things that cause a problem. When I have stem cells, those are the ones that are used for repair. When I don't have enough of them, I can't send in the relief because there is no relief. And homeostasis, or stability. I want to make sure that when my body tells a cell to produce a particular protein or enzyme or whatever it may happen to be, it's the right one at the right time. So those are the kind of understanding and reversing. What are those final 4 that we're really looking at? So let's get into detail here. So if I'm looking at aging, if it gets started and really starts to go gangbusters in the aging damage and things, there's a possibility that you can start having cascading effects. I think we saw that most recently with COVID. You end up with a little sniffle. Some people never got anything because their immune system took care of it. But that sniffle turned into maybe a cough, turned into pneumonia, turned into a major health problem, heart issues. So we're trying to avoid those cascading failures that happen. So I have the first level at the cellular level is what we call homeostasis. I have a quality control part of my body that says, this is what I want that cell to do. And so long as it does that, we're happy. But if it's not being maintained by food and exercise and stress and quality of sleep, then it starts making the wrong proteins at the wrong time, and we're not getting what we need to function as a healthy individual. I also have the ability to self-clean. It's called autophagy. And so I have my cells, they're sitting there, they're working, they're doing a lot of things, they're generating energy. But all the processes that go on in our cells require energy, require a lot of things. And as we get older, debris inside the cell starts to accumulate. We get a lot of trash, a lot of garbage. Sometimes little little things in there wear out a little bit and need to be replaced. Well, autophagy is a body's normal process where it goes in and actually to every single cell, opens the cell door and says, give me your trash. And the cell, dumps it all out. Give me the non-working stuff. So basically your body gets rid of the trash, repairs everything, gives it back to the cell. Now you have literally a brand new cell operating again with a clean environment. You can imagine if you never left your house for 10 years, but meals are being delivered, newspapers are being delivered, everything is being delivered, put in the house, your TV broke, your Wi-Fi broke, you couldn't get anything fixed. You can imagine what kind of chaotic condition you're in. Well, that's what's kind of happening to the cells. we have the ability to activate autophagy, but we choose not to, or we activate it momentarily and then it's off. Exercise activates it, fasting activates it even longer. A lot of things we can do there. If I'm looking at the energy, the mitochondrial part of that, the ATP, adenosine triphosphate, our body produces energy for our bodies. Well, we have a certain demand that our body needs, and our cells generate that. Well, sometimes things happen and the cell isn't as power productive as it can be. And we start having brownouts, blackouts, and if I get enough of them, then I start actually having a problem. And the other one is called inflammation system. We have free radicals attacking our DNA, attacking every organ in our body all the time. If left unchecked, that free radical damage causes it. If I can't keep track of that inflammation, it becomes oxidative stress, now becomes a major factor in DNA damage, mutations, and everything else down the road. So we want to minimize individually these things, because if they start piling up on each other, one can cause another one to happen at the same time. That's not what we want. So if I look at these things, loss of proteostasis, that's your assembly line's broken. Your quality control team that makes sure your proteins are structurally correct. They're not misfolded, they're not toxic. There's just a lot of things that can go wrong. And generally what happens at the end when you have a problem in this particular area, hallmark of aging, we start looking at neurodegenerative diseases, dementia, ALS, Alzheimer's, etc. Our autophagy becomes disabled. It's called the garbage crisis. I call it cellular cleanup and recycling. In other words, I get so much accumulation of debris, of waste, of garbage inside my cells, the cells don't work right. Now I get a metabolic dysfunction, which can cause us to age in an accelerated capacity or introduce us to other age-related diseases sooner than we need to see them. Mitochondrial dysfunction. At one point in time in my life, I thought this was one of the major causes of just about everything in our body. But as I'm going through and I wrote my book, Aging Sucks, I realized it's one of several things that can disrupt your health and really cause a lot of problems because you're not getting the power you need. Your body, your cells produce power. It's there for a reason. Your body needs it for every organ to function, for your brain, your breathing, everything in your heart. You need that energy. So especially your heart, your brain, your liver, the things that really require a lot of energy, those are the ones that are most likely going to be affected if you start having mitochondrial dysfunction. And inflammation, it's an internal smoldering fire. I call it. It's a protective immune response, but instead of taking care of business as usual, something happened and now it's going rogue. You end up with not just the inflammation in that particular organ, tissue, wherever you're at, but it starts permeating the rest of the body. And in reality, it becomes, what some people would call a force multiplier, because it's just not the simple little inflammation. It's actually a massive tidal wave coming behind it. So if I look at proteostasis, in other words, this is the stability inside your body, the cells to function the way they're supposed to. So I have what they call chaperones, molecular chaperones, but they set up the ability of your cells to operate correctly. But if they get disrupted, in other words, let's say that this particular cell tells the body to produce a protein. Well, that protein gets produced, but sometimes that protein folds over on itself because it doesn't have the stability. Well, we have a lot of control mechanisms in our body to straighten that thing back up again, and it folds over again. So the misfolding causes the protein not to act like it's supposed to and actually create problems. And so if I start having enough of these things, they start to accumulate. Now I'm starting to spread damage across the board because they are not doing the jobs they're supposed to do. They've lost their function in life. And when you don't have enough people on the team to make the body work, we start seeing problems. That's what's happening. The next area to look at is when you start building up inside your body. In other words, let's say these misfolded proteins are creating a problem. Well, I can have them now not do the job. If the job was to keep the pathway open for my neurons so that I have good thinking capability, no brain fog, those kinds of things, then they start getting in the way and they create a problem. That communication is not going the way it's supposed to do. So I end up with a lot of built up trash, a lot of functions in the cell that are not working 100%. I'm starting to get what toxic overload, too much accumulation, and the cell starts to what they call dysfunction, DYS, dysfunction. So I end up with a lot of beta amyloid plaques, tau proteins. I end up with things that cause dementia, a lot of issues because I'm not getting the communication because the proteins are not there working properly. If I have my autophagy working correctly, my cells are clean, everything is working properly, the repair mechanisms are going, everything's nice and clean and working well. Yeah, that's the way you're supposed to be. However, I don't have it. That's what they call disabled macroautophagy, but yeah, let's just call it autophagy. You don't have a self-cleaning. You have a self-cleaning oven. If you never clean the oven, it's going to get dirty. But we have the ability in our bodies to self-clean, and we're not doing it. Well, I'm not saying we're not doing it. We're not allowing the body's normal processes. The body knows it needs to do it. You just have to prompt it. So that is when we start having a problem with our too much trash and broken parts in our cells. They start to accumulate and become a major portion of the problem with our health. So if I were to look at this thing, from the balance perspective, I have damaged proteins. They're not doing anything. They damage other particles out there. My autophagy is suppressed. Everything starts to build up. And it's not something that can't be done. It's a fairly easy thing to activate. Go on what do you call it? Intermittent fast, 16, 18 hours. Do some exercise. There are a lot of things that activate autophagy. Now, the autophagy is activated while you're exercising, but shuts down pretty soon after you stop. There are other things that you can do to activate it. Autophagy is what it looks like, auto, Phagy, if you're going to look it up on Google. But if you fast, I do a 72-hour fast every month. It usually turns out to be 100, 150 hours. But part of my focus is to have autophagy go through my body and clean up the cells that are in there. So autophagy, generally in somewhere around 16, 18 hours, it starts to build. I can get my autophagy to 100% generally in about 72 hours. So if I keep it there for 100, 150 hours, I'm allowing that autophagy now to permeate my entire body and work on all the cells, my brain, my heart, my liver, all of them get in there and clean things up as best as possible. Whoops, hang on, back. Okay. Mitochondrial dysfunction, I talked about the power. Okay, what happens if I'm not getting the power I need? A little bit of fatigue. I don't want to exercise as long as I used to. Maybe I'm starting to get a little migraine, a little muscle soreness. Maybe have some problems with my digestion. A lot of things begin to happen because the power is not there to give the cells the ability to work the way they're supposed to. And so when the cells are not being repaired properly, they can trigger what's called apoptosis. And we'll talk about that here very, very shortly. But I have power going to the brain, to my heart, to my liver, to my lungs, to my muscles, to my kidneys, to everywhere. And I have to keep that level up at a certain amount. What happens in your car when you don't have enough juice to crank the engine? Nothing. Just sits there and stares at you and goes, wrong, 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 wrong. But I had a situation last week. Got out of church, came outside, turned on the engine, nothing. I couldn't. I tried jumping and nothing. Took it to the auto repair place. They couldn't find anything wrong with it. So I had to start using my reliability engineering mindset and say, what stops everything, but everything is still working? And so my car battery was fine. Alternator was fine. Everything in the system was fine, but I couldn't start the car. Couldn't jump the car. So the first thing that occurred to me is maybe my gear shift handle was not fully engaged in the park position. It was in between. And when it's in between, it disconnects everything. So I talked to the repair guy, talked to the repair manager. Yeah, that's probably what happened. So now I have another mindset that says, okay, if it doesn't start, make sure the gear shifts in neutral or park, try it up again. So, but anyway, a lot of things we learn every day. Um, we have what's called reactive oxygen species. Our mitochondria produce that at a low level. It's it's a it's an oxidation, but it's such a minimal level that it's there and it's working in a positive manner to keep our cells operating. In other words, it's kind of like a knock on the door. Okay, got to let's get this one done next. This one done next. As we get all those things done, but if I'm making too much of it, I have a problem. If I'm making too less of it, I have a problem. I got to be in that Goldilocks zone. So I end up with defective mitochondria replicating themselves. In other words, I have a bad one. It's making a mirror image of itself. It's another bad one. I end up with a lot of stress. I can end up being obese. I can end up being a lot of heart issues, a lot of brain issues. I can end up having if I start in this inflammation and I take it up another level to oxidative stress, now I'm starting to really push the limits of what my DNA can actually do for repair. So if I'm having these things hit my DNA just constantly, and my DNA responds pretty well, it's got almost a half a dozen different repairing mechanisms. It just goes into automatic mode to repair damage. But if it can't repair the damage, then we start seeing not only damaged mitochondrial DNA, but also my nuclear DNA. I'm having problems with protein synthesis, all sorts of issues there, just creating problems left and right. What normally would happen is the cell's not working right, go to automatic program, okay, software mode, not working, kill the cell. That's what our body's supposed to do. And in most of the cases, it does. But as we start aging, we start having other effects because we're not getting this apoptosis. I mean, we're not getting the autophagy done. The apoptosis phase, where the cell is programmed to kill itself, die. Then all of a sudden, the cell doesn't die; it becomes a zombie cell and creates a world of havoc on its own. So if I'm looking at this thing as I can have inflammation, I can control it. But what happens if I can't control it? If I'm sitting there and every day I'm able to control it, I'm controlling future injury, future immune response, future things that are not going to happen because I'm able to control it properly. But when I don't have it, now my risk of injury, disease goes up. My persistent stress now opens the door for organ damage, kidney, lung, heart, whatever it may happen to be. So acute inflammation is a small inflammation that happens to us all the time. It's actually good for us. Let's say you go to the gym, you work out, and you're lifting weights and you want to build up your muscles or you want to do out running. That little bit of what we call acute inflammation works fine. I need it. I need it to improve. I need it to grow. I need it to get stronger. But when I don't have that and I have chronic inflammation that just never leaves, now I have a problem because I can't take care of that minor problem that was short term. Boom. I went to the gym 2 days later, I'm sore. 4 days later, I'm back at the gym working out with stronger, better. Everything is working better because I took care of that momentary acute inflammation. But the chronic inflammation goes on and on and on and on. It's just, you end up with tissue damage, you end up with organ damage, you end up with lots of things. So the process is progressive. The damage is progressive. You end up with your immune system being challenged, a lot of issues, accelerated aging, a lot of disease opportunities open the door. So inflammation and what they call SASP. It's when the cell is inflamed, it issues this SASP molecule, and it just kind of sits there and creates havoc because instead of the cell dying, it's actually creating more problems because it touches something, and that cell that it bumps into now normally it just bounce off because it's just another cell. But now that cell has some, SASP, it has a toxic chemical. Let's say you touch a butterfly, lands on your finger, no problem at all. But maybe as a caterpillar, if you touch that caterpillar, it emits a very nasty chemical that burns you. So this burning is what it's basically, this SASP toxic envelope around that zombie cell. So that zombie cell now becomes a major contributor to cellular image because it's floating around in an environment with a lot of healthy cells. Just a lot of things going on there. Okay, getting toward the end of this one. So I have, if I'm looking at these last four, I have proteostasis. That's my ability to stabilize and keep constant stability in my body. I have my quality control team out there making sure my proteins are structurally right. If something is wrong, they fix it. I have inflammation that my body can control. If I feed it right, I exercise properly, I get my stress under control. So I have a lot of things there I can do. I can control my stress. I improve my immune system so it handles these things routinely. Tissue repair is done. Everything is done in a proper manner. I have mitochondria. So long as I keep my mitochondria healthy, great. If I don't, now I start having things go back to having inflammation. I have things going back to creating a problem with the stability of my body. Lots of issues. And the autophagy I've talked about more than a couple times here. I end up with a problem where I can't provide the cleanliness and the repair mechanism at the cellular level that my body needs. It becomes a problem. And I think that's, let me see if I got it. Okay, from cellular failure to pathology. Okay, sarcopenia is when I start losing a little bit of muscle mass. I had flappy muscle underneath my arm. That's one of the things that comes out of this. Alzheimer's, that neurodegenerative disease. Frailty, I don't have the body strength. I don't have the ability to do things. Fatty liver is one. Type 2 diabetes, cancer, dementia, grip strength. All sorts of things start going wrong because I'm building up too much garbage in my system and not cleaning it out. What can I do? Intermittent fasting, caloric, I call it restriction, moderation. It basically starts the autophagy process, goes in, cleans up, repairs things. High intensity interval training, exercise, actually creates my mitochondrial's ability to create new mitochondria. So I have, let's say, 2,000 mitochondria in this cell. I go and exercise, high intensity. I can actually get 2,500 or 3,000 mitochondria in that cell. Now I have 500 or more mitochondria producing more energy. So it stimulates a lot of things. Anti-inflammatory, it basically, I'm looking at my nutrition, my ability to maintain a proper weight. It prevents chronic inflammation. It gives the body the fighting tools it needs. So it reduces the stress. And it suppresses a lot of things that would just kind of get out of control. Sauna, heat stress, cold therapy, all of these things significantly help our ability to maintain stability and to fight inflammation. So they activate what they call chaperones in the body, and it keeps the good guys in good shape, and it prevents the bad guys from taking over. So aging is a modifiable system. Basically we're only looking at the four right here: the quality control, the broken cleanup, the energy collapse, and the smoldering inflammation. These are the 4 of the 12, when I consider the 8 from last week, that are measurable, that are things that we actually have the ability to control. Because when you don't, then we start allowing the aging hallmarks to actually take over our life. And with that, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Let me get that pulled up here. Here we go. Okay. It's kind of a busy slide. So I think what I'm going to do on this one, we're going to talk about each one of those in general. So let's just zip on down here. If I'm looking at the static model of health, 1948, the World Health Organization, they were saying it was basically absence of disease. That was their approach. And when they had a problem, they focused on the symptom of that problem. And in most cases, it kind of treated it, but maybe it didn't. But they really didn't look at it as a dynamic model. So if I'm looking at it today, there's a lot of things in there that create damage, that create repair capability. When I focus on disease, I want to look at the root cause of the disease, not the symptoms of the disease. So these are the things from a biological reality that I want to do. Modern medicine creates a problem by treating the symptom and allows that root cause problem just to sit there and smolder. Sometimes the body fixes it, sometimes it doesn't, and that's what we're learning about here. If I'm looking at too much on one side or too on the Goldilocks zone, that line down the middle, So I end up with immune issues, cardiovascular, cognitive, mitochondrial, a lot of issues there that I can start looking at from a health perspective. I'm now looking at hallmarks of health and not hallmarks of aging. Because and just like with hallmarks of health, too much or too little is an issue. Hallmarks of aging, too much, too little is an issue. There is a control zone. And that's what I really need to be aware of. Okay, so if I look at the hallmarks of health, and I'm going to start over here where it says number one, integrity of barriers. We're going to go into that. Containment of local perturbations, damage control, integration of circuitries, rhythmic oscillations, homeostasis. I mean, just there's a lot of these things, and I'm going to go into each one of them. But part of these cover recovery, part of them cover stability, part of them cover protection. So I got 9 of them total, 8 of them in reality, because 9 hasn't been totally approved yet, but it's out there being circulated for approval. So let me see if I can get here. So I have barriers. I have my skin. I have my gut lining. I have my blood-brain barrier. I have cellular membranes. I have a lot of things in there that protect toxic materials, pathogens, UV damage, all sorts of things. The best damage is the damage that's never occurred. So prevention is really what we're looking for. It doesn't require any energy. It doesn't require, it doesn't create a problem if I have proper damage prevention. If I'm looking at damage control, if I keep everything within one organ, one cell, one tissue, one muscle, fine. But what happens when all of a sudden that barrier breaks down and the damage that's inside now leaches out and becomes a problem somewhere else? So now instead of having just a localized problem, I have a major problem. We see that a lot with infections that just kind of go willy-nilly to other parts of the body because we can't control the stability, the local perturbations, the containment, that damage control area of the body. Integration of circuitry, the communications. Our brain sends out signals back and forth between our hormones, our all sorts of just going back and forth. So when things are going well, right signals are arriving at the right time, the right things are being done, boom, 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 boom. However, if something happens and that pathway is distracted, maybe the signal is sent wrong, maybe it's not interpreted properly, I start having misinformation, disinformation, and signals that either are not activated, they're activated improperly, or they're delayed. That becomes a problem, and I start seeing fatigue, brain fog, mood, instability. My immune system starts having issues. A lot of problems with regard to that. Rhythmic oscillations. We think about the daylight and dark. My brain is going crazy here for a moment. In other words, I wake up at a certain time. I have daily circadian rhythm. Okay, that's what I was trying to think of. But our biology is not random. We have everything running on certain systems. It's a lot more than just the circadian rhythm. You got a lot of systems that are on clocks that go on and off, on and off. Artificial light, shift work. These things can create problems, but they also are there to help stabilize problems. So if I have a rhythm that's disruptive, now I start driving metabolic dysfunction, hormonal imbalance. My repair capability is being lessened. These body clocks need to be maintained. Homeostatic resilience, my ability to adapt and overcome. So if I'm a Marine and I'm out there and say, improvise, overcome, adapt, those are things that I want my body to do. Yeah, I have some problem, boom, I bounce right back to where I was. I'm resilient. But when I'm not, the stress itself is not the problem. It's the inability of our body to recover from that stress that becomes the problem. So when we are not doing stress management, we're allowing that damage to accumulate faster and more of it than when we are repairing it properly. That becomes an issue. Okay, my Goldilocks zone here is green. It's hormesis, the adaptive stress response. In other words, I talked earlier about being able to lift weights. I lift the weights, I get stronger. And that's the way the body is built. That's our short-term stress acute adaptation. I damage something, I repair it, I recover, I adapt, I overcome, I get stronger. That's what your body's supposed to do. But when we have chronic stress, I never adapt. I just can't. I push myself too far. Now, maybe I injure my back. I can't go to the gym for 2 weeks. A lot of things under accumulative wear and tear, not only in your body, but your brain, becomes major problems. So I end up with what's called allostatic overload, wear and tear, or I end up with atrophy on the other side. So I have a certain nice, sweet Goldilocks zone that's where I want to be at. Repair and regeneration. We talk about repair all the time. So I have recovery and rebuilding. This is where the DNA mutations, the oxidative stress, the cellular waste, the inflammation, all of those things are causing problems at the cellular level throughout our entire body, every second of every day. We try to keep those controlled. And the body has a wonderful ability to do that. It actually does an exceptionally good job of identifying the failure, figuring out what failure mechanism it needs to counter it with. Okay, this is the proper one for that failure. Boom, activate it, go. And then we end up with, over time, the cells that are supposed to die don't. They become zombie cells. They create problems, lots of issues there, wound healing. But I want to look at what can I do to keep my repair and regenerative processes maxed out so that whenever there's a problem, I have the ability to treat that problem. Psychosocial adaptation is the ninth hallmark of health. And it's like they talk about our mental and social resilience. We have our mind and our body, and they actually work very well in conjunction. But every so often, we're stressed out, we're depressed, we're anxious, we have issues, we're not managing stress well, I've got other issues, I can't think well, I can't do things. So every one of these things is an experience that's interpreted by our brain, our subconscious mind. And when we get things overloaded, I start ending up with challenges to my immune system. I end up metabolic dysfunction, cardiovascular risks. I have a lot of things that are overloading my system. So that's what happens when I end up from a psychological, psychosocial position where my adaptation of being able to correct itself doesn't happen. I want to be on that one where my adaptation balanced out. I want to stay away from the other one where things just go out of control. I have a couple, 3 more slides left here. Cascade of failure. I have a weak barrier. Let's say that my gut lining is challenged by something I ate. That containment fails. Now I start having, say, undigested material, toxic materials, other things now enter my bloodstream. They overload the immune system. Now they get into my bloodstream. They start going to other organs and tissues in the body. My immune function becomes challenged. It can't handle the things that need to be done. So I end up with a dysregulated system, body-wise, systemic. And then when my stem cells come in there and they get used up, I don't have any reserves. I end up with a cascade of things that could have been prevented had I been aware of it at the first level. I could have probably prevented it at the third level. Even at the third level, I could probably have done something. But a lot of times we don't understand how our body works. We can stay healthy. We just don't know how to do it. Sleep, stability, and recovery. Absolutely. You can't get any repairs done without sleep. Exercise, it builds that resilience, that adaptability that make you stronger. It gives you much better hormetic regulation, your ability to stabilize everything. Nutrition, that feeds everything in our body. It strengthens our immune system. So we need the raw materials to recover. We need the other things just to maintain a normal daily life. Stress management protects your psychology. It protects a lot of things, but mostly your mental and your physical capability. Hydration, light, all of those things are there. That's my last slide here. Okay, health is not a passive state, and if you hope to maintain it, you have to continuously fuel it, protect it, support it, provide adaptive inflammation to get stronger and build up your reserve capacity. That is it in a nutshell. So you got to accumulate, you got to fight that accumulated damage and go from there. So I'm going to wrap it up today, getting toward the end of the show, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye now.
What if many of the problems we associate with aging are not random? What if there are identifiable causes behind declining energy, chronic disease, and memory problems? We have been told that aging is simply something we must accept, that slowing down is normal, that growing older means growing weaker. But what if that's only part of the story? Why do some people remain active and engaged well into their later years? Why do others struggle with disease, fatigue, and declining health? What is happening beneath the surface? What processes drive aging? In Aging Sucks, researcher, educator, and author Red O'Loughlin explores what researchers have discovered about why we grow older. No medical degree required, no confusing jargon, just clear explanations of what researchers have discovered about the processes that influence aging. You cannot stop aging, but understanding its causes may help you make better decisions about your health, your future, and your quality of life. Because understanding comes before action. Action creates hope. Aging sucks. End the guesswork. There is hope.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA-Global-TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.